Gresham is at a decisive point in its history. Over the years, the costs of doing business have risen, and the money the city receives in taxes and fees just hasn't kept up. On this May's ballot, you will be asked to vote on the Gresham Safety Levy. The levy will increase resources that will stabilize police, fire, homeless services, and mental health crisis response. On this special episode of Community Hotline, we'll be talking to local leaders about the goals of the levy and how it will go a long way to help protect the community. Hello, and welcome to this special issue of Community Hotline. My name is James Offsink, and I'll be your host for today's episode, which focuses on the Gresham Public Safety Measure. I am joined today by Gresham City Manager Nina Vetter and Chief of Police Travis Gullberg to talk about Gresham's Public Safety Levy. Thank you both so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you, James.
So, first question for our viewers who may or may not know much about the levy, what are we looking forward to? What should they know about this levy?
Yeah, absolutely. First thing generally about levies is a local option levy, which functions just like a property tax, and it is to fund government services. The Gresham Safety Levy in particular is a property tax local option levy that would be for 5 years that would be dedicated towards funding our critical safety areas, including police, fire, homelessness response, as well as mental health. So the safety levy would be $1.50 per $1,000 of assessed value, which on an average home in the city of Gresham comes to about $28 a month.
Thank you. And so can you help folks understand why this amount and why now? Like, what is the specific need that we're trying to address here?
Absolutely. Over the last few decades, the city of Gresham has done its best to serve the community with what it has in terms of revenue. But our property tax revenue is really limited by state law. We have one of the lowest property tax rates in the state. And so over the last few decades, we've been trying to stretch ourselves as thin as possible, but we haven't been able to add staff. And actually over the last few years, we've had to make some serious budget reductions and we've lost 30 positions. So we've hit a point where we need to do something in order to continue to have the staff we have today to provide quality services to our community and also add staff so that we can have a safer community. So our city council in 2022 approved a financial roadmap and moved forward with this levy again that will allow us to maintain the staff that we have today in our critical safety departments and also allow us to add so that we can be more responsive to our community.
Thanks. And so, Chief, thank you for being here. Could you add maybe a little bit more about how, I guess first just setting the background that Nina talked about. So what are the changes that we've seen over the last few years that are really motivating the need for the levy at this time?
Yeah, no, I think it's important to recognize that not only in our local community, but really on the national stage, as you will, that our communities are struggling with safety. And again, this is coming out of the COVID experience. It's coming along with the rise in crime, certain crimes, not all crimes. Certainly, we acknowledge that violence is on the rise as well. And what our communities are experiencing, we're not able to keep up with because of our staffing challenges. So as Nina shared with you about what we want to do around the levy, the idea is that we need that levy to support the work that we do every day. And we have been historically challenged here in Gresham, but even more recently around our experiences is we need help with this levy so that we can do the work that is needed to keep our community safe. So that kind of sets the stage as to what we want to do, but there's a lot of opportunity in not only meeting the need, but on growth.
And when you say that we're really kind of lower than where we want to be, what are the key metrics that you're looking at? I mean, is it like number of officers per however many head count? Is it response times? Like, what are the key things that you're looking at that you think this levy is going to really make a difference?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's a complex question, and there is no real answer to that. No specific answer that you can do. What I would tell you is the metric we use is, are we meeting the community needs? And if we're not, what are the staffing needs we need to be able to do that? And that's not only just with the police department, by the way, that's citywide in the services we provide. And so the metric really is getting in with our community, getting engaged with them, understanding their need, meeting them at their need, and then saying to our budget, this is what we need. And again, this is why the levy is so important, because not only does it stabilize where we're at right now, but it allows us an opportunity to grow in a way that's appropriate but meets the needs of our community. And so that is the true matrix. They've used those 1 per 1,000 before, and that we no longer look at that. We look at the calls for service and what our community needs are.
That's great. I guess I'm hoping to paint a little bit of a picture here for what the state of policing in Gresham looks like today, and what it might look like in a year or 2 years, or should this pass, kind of what the difference that everyday people in Gresham would see.
I'm a longtime community member, by the way. I think I shared that with our community before. While I don't live in Gresham at this current time, I grew up here, I was raised here, and what I know about our community is it's a very vibrant, diverse community, a very strong community, but at times we've struggled with our ability to provide services to the city. And so the picture that I would paint is we know historically we've been challenged in the ability to provide service based on staffing. But what I really like about the levy is it allows us an opportunity to, again, to reiterate, stabilize where we're at, but also grow. And where that growth is that we can meet the challenges that our community is facing. And that's changed, by the way, over the last 5 years. The need for mental health services, the need to focus on those that are suffering from homelessness, the need to provide safety and security and have everybody feel safe and feel like they have the ability to thrive. Those needs change, and what we're not able to do when we don't have stable funding is actually provide the services and meet our community at where they have the need and make sure we're providing the right services. What would you say?
Absolutely, and I would add, because of where we're at today in police and our other departments, we're primarily reactive. We're reacting to the safety challenges that arise of the day. And we've had to pull back from some of the great specialty teams that we have, particularly that police has, our neighborhood enforcement team, which addresses livability issues across the city, our proactive traffic enforcement team. And we know that those are of extreme value to our community, and it's important that we have those proactive those proactive efforts and that proactive outreach, and we just aren't able to do that right now because of our limited staffing. So the levy would allow us to be more proactive, to try to get in front of safety challenges instead of always having to react to them, which ultimately should drive a more safer community in the long term for our community.
Can I get some more specifics on that part? I mean, I've heard both of you now say one of the key takeaways from the levy is to be able to be more proactive about public safety instead of right now the city being so limited is forced to just be reactive. And so, for an average, community member in Gresham, what does being able to be more proactive look like? What's one thing that they're going to see, should this pass?
Yeah, so again, I want to be very clear that the community understands that we'll be there when they call 911. And so the reactive part is that we do have staff that have the ability to answer that 911 call. The proactive work is, as Nina talked about, the specialty teams or the things we can do to either intercept or prevent or intervene, do collaborative work with other system providers, whether that's mental health systems, whether it's homeless services, so that we're taking a holistic approach to our community safety. Again, the idea we're just reactionary. We will be there when you call 911, but in a perfect world, with the appropriate funding and the appropriate staffing, we're doing that work before to prevent crime and making sure that we're getting our community holistically served so that everybody has a chance to be successful, to thrive, and feel safe in their community.
Thank you. So you mentioned earlier, Chief, in your comments about how the need and the nature of safety has changed, especially over recent years, and how now in Gresham there's challenges with people experiencing homelessness and how that warrants some different responses and types of responses. I wonder if you could talk a little bit more about the dynamic between mental health professionals and your bureau.
Yeah, another great question. Thanks, James. When I think about that, I think about again, that holistic approach of providing wraparound services, not just a law enforcement forward, while that's one component of it, but it's that relationship, that mutual responsibility of going out in the community with our service providers. And in case we're fortunate, we have a behavioral health unit, and they're a very successful model. Unfortunately, we've had to pull back from that because of the challenges we face with staffing and funding. But that program is very successful at getting to the individuals in our community, meeting them where the need is, and bringing that need to them. So often we hear about the challenges that East County has, that Gresham has, whether we're getting service providers or they have shelters or not. And so what I like about our approach is that we're collaborative, but that we co-respond model between our clinicians and our police officers, and that way we can approach individuals in a different way and be more successful in that approach, but we have the safety and security of having police officers respond with them. Again, the challenge is, and this is why the levy is important, that work is challenging when you don't have the stable funding and when you don't have the stable staffing to be able to do that. That's what this levy does for us.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Our goal is to get the right resource to the problem and to provide comprehensive safety to our community. And while we are doing our best efforts, our staff is doing a great job every day trying to do that. It's just really hard to do that with our limited staffing. And we know that for any one safety-related incident, we might have, we might need a law enforcement response, we might need a mental health clinician, we might need a homelessness team response, we might need a nurse, we might need an EMT. There might be multiple resources that are needed in order to properly care for and take care of that response and take care of the people who are involved in that safety-related incident, so that we're not only taking care of the people in that moment, but we're trying to take care of them in the future. We're trying to prevent future crime. We're trying to get them the resource they need. That is our approach, and we can't do that if we don't have the staff. And we really want to continue to have that comprehensive response to safety in our community.
So James, can I add, thank you, Nina, to be specific, it adds 26 police staffing positions. And notice that I didn't say police officers, I said police staffing positions. And the reason why is because we're taking a more, again, that holistic model approach of, with those 26 positions, we're adding police officers, we're adding clinicians, we're adding professional support staff. What we want to do is not only, grow our infrastructure in terms of service delivery, we also have some ability, like for instance, we want to open up facilities like the Rockwood office and make that more accessible to our community more often, so that our community members that need assistance in policing or filing a police report or getting their recovered property back can go there instead of having to go to a different location. So I think that's the other part is that it adds additional police staff holistically, and then it also enables us to, the ones that we've created temporarily, to move those into full-time positions. So again, it's that robust response to our community needs in a number of different ways that better serves them.
When I think about community safety, it almost feels like there's the reality of how safe people are, and there's also the perception of safety. And it seems like, putting something in front of the voters, it's going to be really important to be able to move the dial on both of those things. And so I wondered if you could talk at all about how you're thinking about helping the perception of safety. I mean, sometimes it turns out, a community is very safe and that there are very few, crimes in, certain parks or certain areas, but people still feel that maybe it's, not safe. And I wondered if you, had thoughts about that for voters as well.
You want to go first?
Sure, I can go first. I think one thing is what builds trust and makes people feel safe is that they get a response and they're heard from and they're followed up on when something happens. And again, with our limited staffing, we'll respond in the moment. It is hard for us to provide that really full, thorough, ongoing communication with someone who's been in a safety-related incident. And so I think that's definitely one challenge that we're facing. And to give a specific example, in police, some of the positions that would be proposed for this levy would include community service specialists who would be able to take non-emergency calls and provide that more thorough constant response to people for those non-emergency incidents that occur. So I think that that's a great example, right, of what the sense that people might get of not feeling safe when they're not seeing the response, they're not seeing the thoroughness, they're not communicated with on an ongoing basis in an incident that they may have been involved in. So we certainly would hope that with the additional staffing, we would be able to improve upon that.
Yeah, and I think the only other piece I'd add to that is a more timely response. Again, the challenges we face with the funding and the staffing, oftentimes there's either a delayed response or the inability to go further than we can, past our limits, as you will. So I think that's the other thing I would hit on is, Nina covered it pretty well, but it's that idea that we can also be responsive, timely, and people aren't waiting for us. I have an aunt that had her vehicle stolen out of her driveway, just across from Centennial High School, where she's lived for decades. And she did all the right things. She locked her car up, used some other anti-theft devices, and yet her car still got stolen. I'm very thankful of the work that we did to recover it, but I wonder about the delays in her ability to connect with us and have to wait for us, and the challenges we have around. While we got lucky this time and recovered my aunt's vehicle, oftentimes we don't get those same results, and it's really because we need more staff, and so because of that, we need this levy, and that's what I'm excited about. That's why I support this levy, and I hope that the viewers support it as well, and our community supports it, because it's going to allow us to do the work that we need to do.
Well, that's a really great segue into our last question, which is, I think we've been talking positively about what would happen, what changes folks should see in the community should this pass. I think it's also really important for community members to have kind of an equally, vivid picture of understanding, if the community decides not to vote for this, what do we think? What should they know? Changes or more of the same? What should we make sure that they know before they cast their ballots?
Yeah, I think that's important. So thank you for bringing that up. Like I mentioned, the city has been facing budget challenges for many decades. They've been building up to this point. And so if we don't have the levy for our next fiscal year, we're looking at an $8 million budget gap, which is significant. Our city council would need to identify some potential solutions just to bridge that gap. But what that means to the community is, we would not be able to add more staff in fire, police, and homelessness response without this levy. What we would be trying to accomplish for our next budget year is literally just maintain what we have, and that might be even difficult in and of itself. So it would be hard to really tell the community, oh, you'll see more staff and improved services if we don't have this levy. We would just be struggling to really maintain what we have today.
And I would just add slower responses, maybe not getting that follow-up investigation that you need. When I think about my aunt, maybe not recovering her car in a timely manner, and that's not acceptable to me. I mean, we often talk about some of the experiences we have, and one gunshot victim is too many. One death in our community is too many, and I think about if we don't have the staff and we don't have the funding to like Nina said, it's one thing to be stable, not even barely meeting the needs of our community. It's another thing to say, this is what our community needs. We need to get there, and this levy helps that.
Well, thank you both so much for being here to educate voters and for sharing your perspectives with the viewers who are tuned in today. Once again, this is Gresham Police Chief Travis Gullberg and Gresham City Manager Nina Vetter. Thank you again. And to all of those of you tuning in at home, thank you for joining us. Please remember that the last day to register to vote is April 25th, and that your ballots need to be postmarked by May 16th. Thank you so much for doing everything you can to become an educated voter.